My son wrote to me, "You're not invited to dinner. My wife doesn't want to see you." And this was after I paid for their new house. I replied, "Okay," and canceled all payments, deleting 174 receipts. They started calling me, but Before we continue, please write down which country you are watching this video from and how old you are. Enjoy listening. I adjusted the folds on my dark blue dress, smoothing the fabric with my hands, even though it was already fine. It was my go-to dress, the one I always wore to family dinners. Not too fancy, so my daughter-in-law Jessica wouldn't frown, but not too casual, so I wouldn't look sloppy. At 77, I haven't been chasing fashion for a long time. But I'm used to being neat. I've been like that my whole life. Even when there's no one to impress. Michael said dinner would start at 7. It was only 6. I walked around the room. Everything in it was like a museum of my life. A photo with Robert, our golden wedding anniversary. Little Michael with the first fish he caught himself. Ethan and Emily at their graduations. These pictures. They reminded me that once everything was different. Warmer. More understandable. I lingered on the photo of Robert. He's been gone for 15 years, but I still consult with him in my head. "Zena, don't let anyone take advantage of you," he always said. He knew how to set boundaries. Even with Michael. But I don't. My phone vibrated. A message from Michael. I put on my glasses. I thought he might want to clarify the time or offer to give me a ride. Although he hadn't offered in a long time. "Mom, I'm sorry. It won't work out today. Jessica is hosting a dinner for her colleagues. Shall we reschedule?" I read the message. Yesterday he insisted that I come. He said he had important news. Something wasn't right. A few seconds later, another message arrived. "You're not invited. Jessica doesn't want you to come." My phone tingled in my hands. It was as if someone had thrown cold water on me. It was from Michael's number. From his name. I slowly sank into a chair. I was still holding the phone, as if it were the last thread connecting me to something real. Memories flashed before my eyes. How Michael held onto my skirt in kindergarten. How he shyly asked the council what to give a girl as a gift. How he later brought Irina to meet me, so happy. And now, this. A cold, short text, as if from a stranger. It's a spontaneous decision. Or maybe they just said for the first time what they had been thinking for a long time. How many times they smiled at me stiffly. How many times the invitations were out of politeness. I looked at the brochure on the table. Advertisement, residential complex, Riverbank. Their new home. A 3-story tongue house by the river with a pier. The house I contributed $120,000 to 6 months ago. "Mom, it's an investment," Michael said. "You'll have your own corner there." My corner, I smiled to myself. It seems to have disappeared long ago. I remember how we made the deal at the bank. The manager looked at me in surprise. "Are you sure, Margaret Smith? It's a large sum." But I was sure. Robert left me enough. I wanted to help my son. That's right, isn't it? Then there was more. A safer car for the children. Private school for Ethan, he has special needs. Kitchen renovation and a new maid, she works, she's tired. Every time I wrote the checks silently. And every time I believed I was doing the right thing. And what was the response? Scheduled holiday calls. Visits, brief, perfunctory. And now this text. Short, cold, no apologies. I got up and went to the desk. The top drawer, where all the papers are kept. Everything is sorted into folders, checks, documents. The Michael folder is the thickest. I opened it. A check for $1 million for the business he abandoned 6 months later. And Irina's tuition fees. Repairs to the roof of their old house. Ethan's car insurance. A loan for the kitchen. Private dental care. I don't remember anymore. How much did I pay for? Everything, for the good of the family. And now I'm not even welcome on the doorstep of the very house I paid for. The phone vibrated again. My heart skipped a beat. But it was Emily, my granddaughter. Grandma, are you coming today? I miss you. My hand froze over the screen. Emily was always different. Sincere. Even when everyone else seemed to forget I existed, she found time. I wrote, "Sweetheart, it seems your parents have decided it's better for me to stay home." The reply came almost immediately. Dad himself said you must come. So she didn't know. I imagined her, confused, standing where no one wanted to see me. In the house that was bought with my money. My gaze fell on the folder again. All this time, I really thought that if I was generous enough, they would respect me. Love me. But in truth, I was just renting their attention. And the lease was coming to an end. I picked up the phone. I dialed the bank's number. Bank Nadezhda. Good evening. How can I help you? Good evening. This is Margaret Smith Kovalova. I need to consult about automatic payments from my account. Of course. You will need to go through identification. While the employee was asking standard questions, a plan was forming in my head. Calm, cold, clear, everything confirmed. What would you like to do? Stop all transfers from the account. All of them. No exceptions. And cancel the power of attorney issued to my son, Michael Kovalev. There was a pause on the line. All transfers. You have a lot of them. I know. Stop them all. Today. I'll come in person tomorrow to complete the paperwork. Okay. We will temporarily suspend them. But without a signature, we cannot cancel them completely. Stop them. Now. While she was typing, I looked at Robert's photo. You were right, Rob. You can't let people walk all over you. Not even your own family. Done. Margaret Smith. All 174 regular transfers and payments have been suspended. 174. I repeated quietly. I couldn't imagine there were so many. After calling the bank, I sat in my chair for a long time, not moving. My hands were shaking a little. But inside, I was calm. It was as if the burden I had been carrying on my back for years had suddenly slipped away. I didn't cry. I just sat in silence in my apartment, surrounded by photographs, old furniture, the smell of vanilla and paper. For the first time in many years, I felt that I had done something for myself. Not for my son, not for my grandson, not for the sake of peace in the family. But for myself. My phone vibrated again. A message from Michael. Emily must have said something to him. But I didn't open it. I wasn't going to explain or justify myself again. I opened a new message and wrote just one line. Now pay for everything yourself. Good luck, breadwinner. My finger hovered over the send button. To be honest, I didn't want to sound rude. But they were the first ones. I didn't start this coldness. They decided that I was unnecessary. Even in the house I bought. They chose to be strangers. I just accepted it. I pressed send. Then I turned off my phone. Silence. Calm. Evening was falling outside the window. Soft light fell on the windowsill. I got up, went to the closet, took off the dress I had worn for dinner. I put on my housecoat and put the kettle on. The kitchen was cozy. It smelled of apples. I took out an old album. I leafed through the pages, my wedding to Robert. Michael in his father's arms. We were at the dacha, on a trip, in a cafe. So many years. And all of them were in these photos. I looked at myself, young, busy. Always doing something for someone else. I put off my own desires, my own dreams. I was always helping someone else. First my husband. Then my son. Then his family. And myself last. Robert always said, Zina, don't let people use you. Even those close to you. Before he died, he made me promise. To take care of myself the way I always took care of others. I nodded then. But in my heart I thought, who will need me if I don't give myself to others? Now I understand that I need myself. I closed the album, went back to the kitchen, made some tea, took out a book I had wanted to read for a long time. I kept putting it off, first because Ethan was sick, then because Irina needed money for her classes, then because of important family events. Now I could read whenever I wanted. I could live the way I wanted. Without expectations. Without requests. Without the endless role of savior. In the morning, I woke up without an alarm clock. Without calls. Without a to-do list. I slept in. Without pills. Without melatonin. I had breakfast, simple but enjoyable. I looked out the window. The day was clear. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel heaviness in my chest. I arrived at the bank 20 minutes before it opened. The street was quiet. I stood in front of the door, in my coat, with a folder in my hands. People walked by. No one knew that this was a special day for me. The day I took my life back. When the doors opened, I went in. The girl at the counter smiled politely. "Good morning. How can I help you?" "I need to see Linda Johnson," I said. "We've known her for almost 30 years. She handled our business with Robert. She was always precise and attentive." A few minutes later, I was sitting in her office. She hadn't changed much. She still had the same neat hairstyle and thin-rimmed glasses. "Margaret Smith, good morning. I'm aware of your call. All transfers have been suspended. Has something happened?" I looked her in the eyes. "I want to cancel everything permanently. And revoke Michael's access to my accounts." Linda Johnson took off her glasses. She began to wipe them with a handkerchief. She always did that when she was thinking about something important. "We've known each other for a long time. Are you sure? This is a radical step." "I'm sure," I said calmly. She nodded. She sat down at the computer. She began to type. "Okay, I'll prepare the documents. It will take a little time. You really do have a lot of automatic payments." While she was filling out the paperwork, she handed me a thick folder. It contained printouts of all regular transactions for the past year. "Take a look. Maybe you'll want to keep something?" I opened the folder. First, Michael and Irina's mortgage. $3,800 a month. A house where I wasn't even allowed to stay overnight. Next, insurance for Irina's car. The premium model she called a necessity so she wouldn't be embarrassed driving clients around. $850 a quarter. Membership in a private club where Jessica networks. A dental specialist for Ethan, who has an overbite. College tuition, the only thing I didn't regret for a second. Every line is a conversation. A request. Sometimes tears. Sometimes blackmail. "Mom, things are bad for us." "Grandma, but you want me to have it as good as everyone else." Then again, repairs, club, tickets, tutor, gym, trips. I just sat or stood. It was the path of my naivety. Page after page, step by step, I gave myself into the hands of those who did not appreciate me. "Here are the documents," said Linda Johnson. "Look and sign if everything is correct." And a power of attorney revocation form. I signed. Without hesitation. Without trembling. "If you need help or advice, call me." She looked at me. "You look different today." I smiled. For the first time in a long time, sincerely. "I'm fine, Lita. Finally, I'm fine." After the bank, I went straight to the lawyer. David Miller is our old family lawyer. He took on Robert's case while he was still alive. His gray beard has grown thicker, his glasses thicker, but his voice remains the same, calm, thoughtful, respectful. "Margaret Smith, what a surprise." He smiled as he rose from the table. "What brings you here?" "I want to change the will," I said simply. "And set up a lifetime trust." so that my assets can no longer be touched without my knowledge. He raised an eyebrow but didn't ask any unnecessary questions. Family circumstances? He asked gently. Yes, I replied briefly. I didn't want to explain everything again. Not now. I just wanted to take a step forward. Okay. Then let's see what exactly you want to provide for. We spent the next hour going over the documents. Oleg explained what an irrevocable trust is, how rights are transferred, how to minimize risks. I listened and asked questions. Surprisingly, I felt neither anxiety nor doubt. Only clarity. Only the desire to protect myself. Myself, no one else. When we finished, I looked at my phone. 15 missed calls from Michael, 7 from Irina, 3 from Ethan. Not a single one from Lisa. I wasn't even surprised. Emily always knew when to wait. Get the papers ready by the end of the week. I asked. I'm coming up. Of course, Oleg nodded. Isaneta Petrovna, he hesitated for a second. Yes, Robert always said that you are much stronger than you seem. I'm glad to see that he was right. I nodded. Restrainedly. I didn't want to cry in the office. On the way home, I stopped by the store. For the first time in a long time, just for myself. I bought the foods that I love. Without thinking about whether Michael likes them. Without remembering what kind of ice cream Ethan prefers. Just for myself. It was a small thing, but somehow I felt proud. A surprise was waiting for me at home. Emily was sitting on the porch, hugging her knees. She saw my car and immediately ran up to me. Grandma, I've been calling you all day. Why didn't you answer? Because I had an important day, sweetie. Help me with the bags. She took the bag and we went into the house. Dad's panicking, Anna said immediately. He says you blocked everything. What happened? I put the kettle on. Everything was calm, without any fuss. I didn't rush to answer. I just put the groceries on the shelves. Yes, I stopped all the transfers. I'm tired. I can't do it anymore, morally or financially. That's it. Emily froze. Oh, did something happen? I turned to her. I looked her straight in the eye. Your father canceled my visit to the family dinner yesterday. He said Jessica doesn't want to see me in her house. In the house I bought. Emily turned pale. Her eyes widened, her mouth opened slightly. What? That can't be. Dad talked all week about how important it was for you to come. I showed her the messages. Without saying a word, she read them. She covered her mouth with her hand. God, I didn't know. Honestly, that's terrible. Grandma, how could they? I put a cup of tea in front of her. That's when I thought, enough is enough. For so many years I helped, paid, saved them. And in the end, I'm not even welcome at their table. So it's time to rethink everything. Emily was silent. Her lips trembled, her eyes filled with tears. You know, she said quietly. I've seen it all for a long time. How they use you. Especially Mom. I tried to talk to Dad, but he always defended her. He said, you don't understand adult matters. I nodded. Deep down, I always knew. Emily sees everything. She just didn't get involved. Maybe she didn't want to get involved. Maybe she thought I could figure it out myself. What now? She asked. They have so many expenses. The mortgage, Ethan's school. Let them figure it out themselves. I replied calmly. They're adults. Michael has a good job. Jessica is a successful real estate agent. Enough. The phone vibrated again. Michael. I turned off the sound. You're not going to answer? Emily asked cautiously. Not today. Let him think about it. Maybe for the first time in a long time. She looked at me in a special way. Intently. You know, Grandma, I've never seen you like this before. I haven't seen myself like this in a long time either. I smiled. We drank tea. We talked about Lisa's work, books, plans. We just talked. No requests. No manipulation. No tension. That's real closeness. That's what family should be like. When Emily was about to leave, she hugged me tighter than usual. Are you sure you're okay? Maybe I should stay? Everything's fine, sweetie. Honestly. Go. And don't worry. She stopped at the door. Grandma. I don't want to come between you. This is yours. I'm not a party to this. I understand, I nodded. This is between me and your parents. You have nothing to do with it. After she left, the house was quiet again. I checked my mail. Among the letters was a notification of a failed attempt to charge Ethan's card. Already? That was fast. It seemed like her grandson was living paycheck to paycheck. I put the letter aside. I sat down by the window. My phone kept vibrating. I ignored it. I just took out an old photo album. I opened it to a random page. We were at a picnic. Still young. Robert. Michael was little. Jessica with a 90s hairstyle. The children were still in diapers. Smiles. Back then, I truly believed we were a real family. When did it all go wrong? When did caring turn into a duty? When did love become financial attachment? I walked over to the mirror in the hallway. The woman in the reflection was no longer young. But there was a hardness in her eyes that had been missing for a long time. A calm, inner strength. It's time to remember who you are, Margaret Smith. I said quietly to myself. The intercom rang. My heart skipped a beat. Could it be Michael? I went to the door and looked through the peephole. No. It was Susan Brown, my old friend. She was holding a basket. Homemade jam and cookies. I opened the door, and without saying a word, she gave me a big hug. Susan Brown hugged me as if I had just returned from the hospital. Quietly, tightly, without unnecessary words. I felt my eyes well up. I didn't cry, but my chest tightened. How I had missed this simple human warmth. Unconditional. I called, but you didn't answer. I decided to come myself. I was worried, she said, walking into the kitchen. I turned off my phone. Just a little, a family emergency. She put the basket on the table. Homemade cookies, a jar of jam, fresh bread. Jessie again. She squinted, as she always did when she called Irina by her nickname. I nodded. Not just her. All of them. Michael, all of them. We sat down. I told her. About the messages. About the cancelled dinner. About the fact that I'm not sending them a penny anymore. Galina listened silently. Just her lips moving in the right places. When I finished, she took my hand. Thank God, she exhaled. I've been watching this for so many years. I wanted to say, Zena, wake up. But I knew you wouldn't hear me. I wasn't offended. She was right. I didn't want to see it myself, I said quietly. They used you. Especially your favorite daughter-in-law. She never respected you. And I paid for everything. I forgave everything. For the sake of peace in the family. We sat for a long time over tea. We talked. Like two women who have understood each other for a long time. Not like mother and grandmother. Just like women who are tired of being convenient. In the evening, Galina left. She promised to come again in a few days. I was left alone. The phone rang again. On the screen, Michael. I didn't answer. A minute later, I got a message from Irina, Margaret Smith. We need to talk urgently. Things have gone too far. You don't understand the consequences. A smirk escaped me. When it comes to money, everyone expresses concern. No one wants to understand what it's like to be superfluous in a family you've supported for decades. I didn't answer. Not to calls, not to messages. I just turned off the sound. The morning began unexpectedly. The doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone, and there was Jessica on the doorstep. As always, perfectly coiffed, with a box of cakes from an expensive bakery. She stood there as if nothing had happened. Good morning, Margaret Smith. May I come in? I silently stepped aside. Jessica entered like the hostess, looked around, and placed the box on the table. We need to talk. She sat down. She folded her hands on her lap. Her voice was soft and mature, as if explaining something to a person with disabilities. What happened was a misunderstanding. Michael shouldn't have written that message. We were on edge. I was planning an important dinner, there were clients, I needed everything to be perfect. And I could have ruined it all. I clarified calmly. No, you misunderstood, she hesitated. It's just that sometimes you're, well, not quite up to date with modern etiquette. You make awkward jokes, you dress, well, old-fashioned. I prompted her. She nodded, feigning sympathy. And you think that's a reason to not let your husband's mother into the house she paid for? Her face twitched. The mask almost slipped, but she quickly pulled herself together. Let's not make this worse. It's hard for all of us. We're in crisis. The loan, Ethan, work. Michael is on the edge. I'm tired. We're all tired. And I asked, have you ever once in all these years asked how I am? Margaret Smith, with this new tone, patient, cold. I'm not sending you any more money, I interrupted her. Not for the house, not for the car, not for Ethan's sports club. Not a single ruble. She froze. For a few seconds, as if she couldn't believe it. You can't do that. We're family. Family means caring. Respect, attention. I haven't seen that from you in a long time. I'm just a bank account, just a card. To you, I'm a function, not a person. You'll regret it, Jessica blurted out. When you're alone. When you get sick. Who will help you? I stood up calmly. I'll manage. As I always have. Before you, before your convenience. Alone? She stood up too. She left the cakes. Apparently, she still believed that this would bring back the trust. This isn't the end, she said at the door. We're still family. No, I said. You're just relatives. My family is somewhere else. When the door closed behind her, I didn't feel triumphant. Only quiet relief. As if her last attempt to manipulate me had failed. I made tea. I put my favorite cinnamon rolls on the table. Not the ones I bought for Ethan. The ones I love. It smelled of cinnamon. It was quiet. I was finally living by my own rules. The next morning, David Miller, the lawyer, arrived. He was punctual, as always. He was carrying a folder with documents. Calmly and methodically, without fuss, he laid everything out on the kitchen table. Everything is ready, Margaret Smith. Here is the new will and the lifetime trust agreement. I nodded without looking. I signed. Every page. Clearly. Without hesitation. The bulk of the estate is transferred to an irrevocable trust, where you are the sole beneficiary during your lifetime. After your death, 40% goes to your granddaughter Lisa, 10% to charity, and the rest, according to your instructions. Michael and Ethan receive the minimum share required by law. Jessica is excluded entirely. I nodded again. Everything is correct. If there are any conflicts with the family, call me, he said, carefully gathering the papers. But, honestly, you've done everything right. It will be difficult to argue. Thank you, Oleg, for everything. He paused and looked at me intently. You know what? In 30 years of work, I rarely see people who decide to take such a step. Most drag it out until the very end. But you freed yourself. And that commands respect. I walked him to the door. Then I stood in the hallway for a long time. I kept my hand on the folder with the signed documents. This was what freedom looked like. Papers, signatures, but most importantly, an inner boundary. Simple as enough. The phone rang again. Ethan, I hesitated. But I answered anyway. Hello? Grandma, his voice was tense. Is it true? Did you turn everything off? It's true. But why? I haven't done anything wrong to you. I didn't hear aggression in his voice, like Irina's, or hysteria, like Michael's. Rather, confusion. Fear. He didn't know how to live without support. Ethan, you're an adult. You work. You're independent. Why are you still dependent on my card? He fell silent. Then he said quietly, I'm used to it. It's always been that way. You always helped me. Have you ever thought about how I felt? He was silent again. You find it funny, I continued. But in the last 10 years, I've only received 2 calls from you that didn't involve a request for money. One was on New Year's. The second was when you needed a certificate for the institute. Everything else, Grandma, transfer it. Grandma, pay for it. Grandma, decide. I didn't think about it, he said hollowly. Exactly. No one thought about it. They just took it. They got used to it. And only when I said no did everyone get alarmed. My card is blocked, he exhaled. I have no way to pay for my apartment. And for my car. I'm screwed. You live alone. You work. These are your expenses. Learn to cope. Talk to the bank. Cut back on spending. Find a part-time job. It's difficult. Life is difficult in general, Ethan, I said calmly. Especially when you've been living off someone else the whole time. He sighed. He was silent for a long time. I gave him time. I didn't interrupt. Grandma, he finally said. Do you really think I'm that bad? No, I replied. I think you're used to the good life. Used to me always being there. I always make decisions. And I can't do that anymore. I don't want to. I'm almost 80. I want to live a little for myself. What if I didn't ask you for money? He said quietly. Would you still love me? I felt a lump in my throat. Of course, Ethan. I love you. But I'm no longer willing to buy your attention. My warmth isn't for sale. He was silent. And then he said something I didn't expect. What if I look for a part-time job? Kuznetsov called me. He said you asked him. He offered me an internship at his office. Sorting papers. Delivering documents. I agreed. Really? Yes. I want to try. By myself. I smiled. Very quietly. But genuinely. Now that's a grown-up conversation, Ethan. Thank you, Grandma, for everything. And I'm sorry. He hung up. I was left alone. With a cup of tea. With my phone turned off. But my heart wasn't empty like it used to be. It was bright. Not because everything had suddenly worked out. But because I had finally stopped living in debt to everyone. That same evening, Emily came over. As always, without warning, she just knocked and came in, as if she owned the place. I was sitting in the kitchen, leafing through a travel company catalog. She noticed it right away. Grandma, are you going somewhere? I'm thinking of going to Italy, I said simply. Your mom always turned up her nose when I talked about it. She said it wasn't the right time, it was too expensive. And now I've decided, if not now, then when? Emily laughed, that's right. God, Grandma, you should have done this 20 years ago. Why did you always put it off? Because there were always more important things to do. First Michael, school. Then work. Then Ethan. Then your mortgage. Then Irina's renovations. And I kept waiting for my time to come. But it never did. Emily sat down opposite me. And now? Now I'm free. Do you understand? I don't owe anyone anything. Not a single ruble. Not a single explanation. She looked at me with a newfound respect. You look different. Stronger. I feel different too. I'm no longer serving. I'm living. We drank tea. Emily told me what was going on at home. Mom was hysterical. She said, stirring sugar into her tea. In the morning, she went to the bank to get access to the account back, thinking you were just emotional. They sent her away, to put it mildly. They said everything was done correctly, and now she's nobody. I told you so, I replied calmly. Dad walks around like he's been beaten. He's in two states now, either angry or sitting and staring at one point. It hit him hard. I wasn't gloating. I even felt a little bitter. He's my blood, my son. But I knew that if I didn't hold out now, it would all happen again. They sold Mom's car, Emily added. The very expensive one. The one bought with your pension. Dad took out loans to pay off urgent bills. He says Jessica is looking for a second job too. I sighed. Not with relief but with understanding. Everything fell into place. When there are no free airbags, you have to get back on your feet. You know, Emily said quietly. I don't envy your freedom. I respect it. You've earned it. Thank you, sweetie. It's true. She touched my hand. Just promise me you'll go. Stop living on leftovers. You deserve a beautiful life. I want you to see how people really live. Not through photos in albums. I nodded. And at that moment, I already knew I would go. When Emily left, I sat in the kitchen for a long time. The catalog had photos of Venice, Tuscany, Rome. Robert dreamed of showing me Italy. His grandfather was from there. We always said, when we retire. But when retirement came, his health no longer allowed it. Now I could. I took out the old atlas. There was a note in the margins he had once circled his favorite routes. I ran my finger across the map. Easy, like life itself. The doorbell rang, pulling me out of my thoughts. Ethan was standing on the doorstep. He looked tired, with dark circles under his eyes, carrying the same backpack he always took to school. He looked less like a grandson and more like a lost teenager. Grandma, can I come in? I nodded silently. He came into the house and took off his jacket. He sat down in the living room. He didn't beat around the bush. I have problems, he said right away. Big ones. My cards are blocked. The bank is demanding payment. My rent is overdue. My car is in the impound lot. I can't cope. And what do you want? I asked calmly. He looked at me like a cashier in a store who had been approached by someone with no money. With a blank stare. Money. I'm not asking for a loan. I'll pay you back. Ethan, I interrupted. You're an adult now. You work. Do you know how adults live? They pay for themselves. Because of the apartment. Because of a mistake. He lowered his eyes. I can't cope because you've never tried. He fell silent. We sat in silence. Then I said, I won't give you money. But I gave your number to a lawyer. He has a job. A small one. Archives, phones. Start with that. You won't earn money right away, but you'll start breathing on your own. He looked at me for a long time. There was something new in his eyes. A mixture of resentment and gratitude. Do you still love me? Very much. But now not with rubles but for real. The morning was quiet. I woke up early, without alarm. I made myself breakfast, slowly brewed coffee, and put cookies on the table. I opened the window, and the fresh air of the street, the light noise of cars, and the smell of spring filled the room. I knew there would be a conversation today. Michael had called the day before. Mom, we want to talk. The whole family. Calmly, without drama. We'll be there at 2. I didn't object. I wasn't afraid of anything anymore. At exactly 2 o'clock, the doorbell rang. I looked out the window and saw 3 cars outside the house. Jessica was standing on the steps, dressed up as always. In a coat and heels. Behind her were Michael, Ethan, and Emily. And about 6 other people, Irina's parents, her sister and her husband, and some acquaintances. I didn't even recognize everyone at first. I opened the door. Good afternoon, Jessica said loudly, as if announcing something important. We are all here to discuss the situation. As a family. I looked at her calmly. Come in. Only you, Michael, Ethan, and Emily. No one else. She froze. But they are all close friends. They are here to support me. We decide together. This is my house, I interrupted. And I decide who comes in. Either you come in with Peter, or no one comes in. Silence. Everyone looks at each other. Irina's eyes show discontent. Michael is confused. Ethan doesn't look anyone in the eye. Emily stands to the side, as always, quietly. Okay, Jessica said, gritting her teeth. Shall we go? They went inside. The others remained outside. Some demonstratively moved away to the fence. Some remained standing by the gate, as if it were not a conversation in a house but a court of law. They sat down in the living room. I sat opposite them. They were silent for almost a minute. Mom. Michael spoke first. We want to understand. Why so abruptly? Why did you cancel everything? We could have talked. Why everything at once? Close it. I didn't close it right away. I kept quiet for 20 years, I said calmly. And all this time you chose. And you didn't ask how I was. And now, when I said enough, you got scared. Not for me. For your own accounts. We weren't scared, Jessica interjected. We just think it's wrong. Family should help each other. Family, yes. But not one-sided. Jessica threw up her hands. You destroyed everything because of one message. It's not one message. It's the end. The end. And the beginning was many years ago, when you started thinking that I owed you. Michael lowered his eyes. Ethan nervously fiddled with his jacket sleeve. We thought it wasn't difficult for you, Michael exhaled. You always offered. I offered. Out of love. And you took it as an obligation. Mom, Michael's voice grew louder. But you can't just wipe everyone out of your life. I'm not wiping anyone out. I'm stopping paying for love you don't feel. And I'm stopping sitting in a house where I'm not welcome. Jessica couldn't take it anymore. But this is the house where your son lives. Your grandson. You paid voluntarily. And now you've voluntarily stopped. She jumped up. We're losing the house. Ethan can't pay for his education. Everything has collapsed because of your resentment. Not because of resentment, I replied quietly. Because of the truth. Because I no longer let you take advantage of me. Jessica straightened up and crossed her arms. You'll regret this. When you're alone. Without help. Without grandchildren. In old age, better alone than surrounded by people who only want my money. Silence. Michael pressed his fingers against the flask. Ethan looked up for the first time. Grandma, he began. I accepted Kuznetsov's job offer. I'll be an intern. I want to do everything myself. Honestly. Thank you for pushing me. Jessica turned sharply to him. What? You knew? Yes, he said. I think Grandma is right. We went too far. Emily came up to me. Quiet. She hugged me. And whispered, I'm with you. Always. I looked at my grandchildren. One is learning to live in a new way. The other is already an adult. Calm. Real. This is my family. I'm not kicking you out, I said. But I've set boundaries. This isn't a war. This is an adult conversation. And I'm not going back to a place where I'm not respected. Jessica stood like a statue. Her lips were pressed together. Her eyes were angry. Let's go, she said to Michael. The conversation is over. He got up without looking at me. Silently. They left. Only Emily lingered for a second. She hugged me tightly. Without words, when the door closed, I felt neither victory nor grief. Only silence and lightness. 6 months have passed. The Italian sun warmed my shoulders. I was sitting on the terrace of a small restaurant somewhere in Tuscany. In front of me was a glass of white wine, a basket of warm bread, and a plate of pasta. No fuss. No one was demanding anything. No one was calling with the phrase, Grandma, it's urgent. With me was Susan Brown. She had kept her promise and come with me. Now she was writing something enthusiastically in her notebook, recording her impressions every day. And I just sat there. I looked at the vineyards. I breathed in the air. I can't believe we're here, I said aloud. I'm 77. And I'm finally living the way I always wanted to. Robert would be proud of you, Galina replied, raising her glass. Here's to you, Zena. Here's to us, I smiled. A lot has changed in the last 6 months. Michael and Jessica tried to pressure me at first. Then they begged. Then they took offense. A couple of times Michael came with a bouquet and said, "Mom, I'm sorry." But each visit ended with, "Now, maybe you'll change your mind." And I refused again. Eventually, they understood. It's forever. Jessica, as Emily told me, quit her old job and got a job as a rental agent. She says she has to hustle. They sold their house, moved to a smaller apartment. And, oddly enough, it turned out to be a good thing. Without a safety net, they began to grow. Out of necessity, but still. Ethan works for Oleg Kuznetsov. He helps with business, fills out paperwork. Sometimes he calls. Without asking for anything. Just to ask how I am. And I feel that for the first time, it's real. Lisa and I talk almost every day. She insisted that I not postpone the trip. She helped me choose the route, book the tickets, even bought me a new suitcase. She said, "You're living now. Make it beautiful." I remembered how, as a child, I dreamed of going somewhere where there was silence, delicious food, and no one rushing me. And now, here I am. Not for anyone else. Not out of politeness. Not out of obligation. But simply because I have the right to. Galina and I walk around cities. We go into shops. We try cheese, we laugh. We take pictures of each other. And every evening I realize that I am not alone. Because, finally, I am with myself. Tonight, I wrote a message to Lisa. "Dear, Italy is wonderful. Come visit sometime. I'll show you that very street where they make coffee like in the movies. I love you very much." I attached a photo. I am in front of vineyards, wearing a light shawl, with wrinkles, with tired but clear eyes. Alive. Real. Free. In the evening, I went out onto the balcony. Galina was reading a book. I just looked at the sky. It was warm. Deep blue. Somewhere below, grasshoppers were singing. I smiled. I made it. Yes, I spent decades, hundreds of translations, thousands of silent concessions. But I managed to say enough. I managed to choose myself. I managed to live, at least a little. Not as a convenient woman, but as the mistress of my own life. The phone vibrated again. Michael. I didn't answer. Maybe later. Or maybe never. Right now, I have more important things to do. To live. Now write in the comments how old you are and where you're from. It's important for us to know who's watching us. Like and subscribe to the channel. There are even more real-life stories ahead.